Hello, Seiiti Arata. If you have to work from home, but you're not able to produce the results you would like, let me show you now a detail about how your brain works. And understanding this detail, you will learn how to implement a series of specific techniques that will make you produce much more and even better than if you would be in the office. You see, the problem with the lack of productivity in a home office is that most people do not plan to work from home, and failing to plan is planning for failure. Many people believe wrongly that it would just be enough to be sitting down somewhere at home and opening the laptop and starting to work as if you would be in the office. But experience shows that this does not work. Just as you have to prepare to go to work, in the same way that your office is designed to make it easier to do your work, you also need to prepare your home and your routine to make your home office experience something productive. That's exactly what you're going to learn right now. Working from home is more productive as long as you organize your routine and your environment. With routines, your brain makes less unnecessary effort. The biggest mistake for people who can't be productive working from home is not having a transition between home mode and work mode. And this happens due to a lack of a routine. When we work in an office, we are forced to have a routine. There is a certain time for us to arrive and to stay in the office, and this requires that we leave the house at a certain time, that we have to get ready to go out. Sometimes we have to eat something before leaving. See, the simple fact of having an hour, specific time to arrive and leave, and having a specific place to go, this alone generates a series of demands that create a routine for our life. I know a lot of people say that they don't like routines, but science says that our brain loves routines. And to understand this, you need to understand that deep down, we're just animals looking to survive. And to survive, we basically need to eat and store energy. Our brain is by far the most energy-consuming organ in our body. At least 20% of our oxygen and glucose are consumed by the brain. And how can we make the brain consume less energy? Well, the secret is to create routines. The statement can be confirmed by examining graphs that measure brain activity. If the person being measured does an activity that they have never done before or that they are not used to doing, the brain activity is intense. It consumes a lot of energy. Now, if the person makes something a habit, some activity that they are used to doing, the energy consumption is much lower. Now, what does this has to do with the home office? When you're working from home, we have more freedom of choice. This may sound good, but the lack of a routine may cause your brain to be consuming more energy, and this will hinder your productivity and can make you feel tired before the right moment without having the energy to work at your best high performance. Now, you probably don't need to be wearing a suit and tie and office clothes to work from home. It is the routine that causes your brain to understand that it is time to work. When we wake up, we shower, we eat, and we take the transportation to get to the office on time, so we are running a routine. This routine is a kind of a transition from home to work. Our brain understands that when we perform that routine, now it is time to work. Now, when we work from home, on the other hand, if we don't have a routine that marks this transition, our brain may have some difficulty getting into work mode. So there are some people who say that you need to get dressed in work clothes with a suit and tie, and that this is the way your brain will understand this is time to work. Well, this is not really true for everybody. There is nothing magical or specific about the office outfit. At most, office clothes will help you just as a memory hook to remember that it's time to work, but it is a very small benefit compared to the great advantage that you have through a routine. What you need is a routine, but the routine doesn't have to be the same for everybody. If there are people who feel better in work clothes, there are also some other people who prefer to work in pajamas, and that is okay. A tip that I will repeat several times here today is the following. Wanting to force yourself to follow rules imposed by other people without good reasoning does not make a lot of sense. So, if you want to try on wearing office clothes, you can do an experiment multiple times, alternating between days when you're wearing office clothes and days when you are wearing just your regular house clothes. And at the end of the day, you have to do a self-assessment on your productivity and try to find out if it really worked for you. If you're using office clothes and that didn't really increase your productivity, you don't need them to do your home office activities. What you need to do is just to have a routine, something that marks your transition between home and work. Once you have that, the details of the routine are not so relevant and they should be adapted, of course, to the lifestyle of each person. The work environment is decisive for your level of productivity. You have to organize your space and set boundaries with those around you. A well-known recommendation is that you should prepare your work environment to improve your productivity, and we even talked about this in episode 17 of the Productivity Arata series. Ideally, you should have a specific environment to work from home. If there is a room or an office with a closed door to separate you from the rest of the house, that's great. But if it's not possible, at least you should try to have a specific table to sit and work. This little table doesn't have to be extremely organized and clean like a surgery room. Forget all those photos that you see in social media. Focus just on your reality. You don't have to feel guilty every time you look at your messy table. If that messy table is working for you, well, that's okay. The big problem is that you spend a lot of time looking for things because of the clutter, so that wouldn't be very productive. However, there are people who work best in chaos, with everything that they need on the table, and that is okay. There are also other people who prefer to have a minimum amount of objects around because they feel good if they are in an organized environment with very few visual distractions. So my question is, what kind of a person are you? Remember that instead of wanting to follow imposed rules of other people without good reasoning, you have to find the best environment that works for you. There are two categories of recommendations. One is the category related to personal preferences. Another category is related to the formation of routines. You need to focus more on the category of recommendations that will help you to be forming routines. Wearing office clothes or keeping your desk minimalist, these are just personal preferences. Now, I'm going to leave you a tip that will help you to form routines, and that is why this is a very important recommendation for you to follow, even if in the beginning you feel some resistance if you don't want to try it. And the tip is as follows. Avoid working just from anywhere, randomly. If you are the type of a person who keeps getting up and trying different places to work, sometimes sitting on the couch, sometimes you're by the table, sometimes you're in bed, well, it's going to be more difficult for you to create a work routine. This hinders the transition from home to work mode. In addition to creating the routine by clearly defining a specific physical space for you to work, you also need to create a routine in the dynamics of the interactions of those people around you. If you share the house with other people, it is very important that you have an honest conversation with everybody. You have to explain that you're working from home and you need total concentration when you're working. So it's not because of the fact that you are at home that people can be interrupting you any moment to talk to you or to ask you to buy groceries or do any other type of activity that you would not be doing if you would be in the office. The virtual environment is just as important as the physical environment. You have to organize your apps and your notifications to be more productive. An advanced technique to increase your online productivity is to create a virtual work environment that is different from your virtual leisure environment. And to do this, you have to create two different profiles on your computer, one for work and another one for leisure. Your leisure profile is free. You can do anything you want. This is the space you're going to put your social networks, your music, your games, and everything else you want. Now, in the work environment, everything has to be configured to promote your productivity. And that means deleting social media shortcuts and blocking those time-consuming websites and installing task management apps. The idea is that when you log in to this virtual work environment, you will not be faced with the distractions, and this way you have fewer choices ahead of what to do with your time, and all the available choices in front of you will inevitably lead you to work. Now, if you can, you also have to separate your messaging apps. If you open an app, for example, to talk to your boss or to your colleagues, the ideal thing is that you don't have also family and friends in the same app. Even if you don't open those groups, just seeing that there are some notifications over there will already fragment your attention, and that can take away your focus out of your work. Don't let your phone get in the way of your productivity. Use an old cell phone to isolate yourself from everything that is not part of work. The biggest fragmentation of attention that exists today is the mobile phone. Now, if your job does not require you to be answering calls, ideally you should leave your phone somewhere else in the house or turn it off, or just put it in airplane mode. You can install all the applications you need to work on your computer and minimize your contact with your cell phone during working hours. Now, if you are unable to get rid of it completely, you have to configure it in the best possible way to eliminate unnecessary notifications. However, you may be the type of a person who uses your phone a lot to work. For example, in my case, I use my phone to work with text editors, to use spreadsheets, apps to communicate with my team and do task management and file sharing and finance management and time tracking and statistics from my websites and calendar of professional appointments and so on. So because of that, I always use my most modern, the newest phone that I have with all my apps related to work. And I also use an older phone to add friends and family and chat groups that don't really require an urgent reply from my side. The old phone stays in the drawer all day long and I only check it occasionally, usually in the evening, after I have already finished all my tasks for the day. And there are some moments in my life when I really need to be very focused and I just look at this personal old phone on a weekend. Thus, it is impossible for any notification that is not related to work to appear to me while I am focused on work. Now, if in your case you just need a few apps to do your work, you can do the opposite. You can use your newest phone, the one that takes the most beautiful selfies and has more storage. You can use that one for your personal life, and you can use your old phone to install all the apps that you need for your work. The biggest challenge of working from home is to stay focused on work and avoid distractions. If you have a device on hand with notifications from friends and news sites and games and messages popping up all the time, it's going to be pretty difficult to focus. Organize your schedule as if you would be in the office and be clear about the division of your time for the day that is exclusively for work. The fact that you work from home does not mean that you have no specific time to work. Some companies require employees to be online at some specific times of the day, but there are also cases where this is not necessary. In one case or another, you can create routines that will save you energy from your mental effort, and it is very important that you have a specific time to work and another specific time to rest and take care of yourself and take care of your housework. Determining your schedule avoids two problems. The first is the problem of taking care of the house when you should be working. The second problem is that you are working all the time and you're forgetting to take care of you and other people around you and other aspects of your life. To free up more time for your productivity, you have to try to automate the routine tasks in your house as much as possible. Use as many appliances as possible, such as dishwashers and washing machines and a robot vacuum cleaner. Cook your meals in bulk. Prepare your food for several days in one time. Schedule when you're going to be cleaning your house. If your work gives you the freedom to make your own schedule, the best technique is to find the times of the day when you're most productive according to your chronotype. Adapt your work schedule to your most productive moments. In a book, When: The Scientific Secrets of Perfect Timing, Daniel Pink analyzed a series of scientific researches that conclude that basically people generally have three different energy stages during the day. A peak, the period when you are most productive, a low, the period when you're very tired, and a recovery, which is the moment when you're resuming part of your energy. Biologically speaking, most of the people surveyed have peak energy close to noon. They have low energy during the afternoon after lunch, and a recovery energy between late afternoon and early evening. But that does not mean that this is exactly your case, because there are other chronotypes. There are people who have peak energy at night and they don't work pretty well in the morning, or there are also people who have peak energy in the morning and they don't particularly work well at night. If you have the possibility to make your own schedule, try to adjust your work moments to match your peak energy. If you are a more morning person, you have to focus your efforts on the most demanding job early on. If you are nocturnal, you can leave that job for the night. If you're like most people, your peak energy will probably be there by the end of the morning. In periods of lower productivity, you can do easier work and less demanding tasks. Use blocks of time for total immersion in the activity. Time blocks are periods that you define to focus entirely on one activity. Let's say, for example, that you have to write a report. You define a block of time of 50 minutes, and during that period you promise not to carry out any activity other than writing that report. You close all your applications that are not needed for that activity and even turn off your mobile phone. You lock the door, and just write that report. The use of blocks of time is one of the best productivity tools because it makes easier for you to enter flow state, the productivity stage in which you can work so concentrated that you don't even realize that time is passing. The most well-known block of time technique is the Pomodoro technique. And by this technique, each block should be 25 minutes long, and you should take small breaks of 5 minutes between these blocks. But as I said before, you should not be following rules that are imposed to you without good reasoning if they don't adapt to you. If this division works for you, that's great. But if you think that 25 minutes is a short period of time for your work, nothing is preventing you from defining larger blocks of work or smaller blocks of work. Your rest block can also be bigger or smaller. Most important of all, you should be satisfied with whatever it is that you're accomplishing by the end of the day. Be accountable for yourself and the company in the form of daily goals. Another big challenge for the home office is the issue of accountability and transparency and how you present the results of your work to your boss, to your customers, and even to yourself. My question is, can you really, at the end of the day, look at yourself in the mirror and be satisfied and proud with yourself about what you have accomplished? You can become an extremely productive person by working from home. It is possible. There is a study from Stanford University that showed that people who work from home can be up to 13% more productive than those who work in the office. When you are in the office with other people watching what you're doing, well, you're hardly comfortable by having things that are not related to work on your computer screen. But when you are at home with nobody watching what you do, well, it is much more tempting to be distracted and do things that have nothing to do with work. One way to avoid this waste of time and energy is to create daily goals and account for those goals. If your job already requires goals, well, that's great. You have to try to break these goals, which usually are monthly or weekly, into daily goals and write down what you are accomplishing. Now, if your job does not require that you have goals, you have to create goals for yourself. You have to prioritize performance goals over result goals. Performance goals are those that you have control over. The number of hours that you work each day, the number of pages that you will write, the number of calls that you make. And by doing so, you can reconcile the dream of working from home with high productivity that will not only make your boss or customers happy, but you will also be happy with the quantity and the quality of the work that you produced. Congratulations! Whether by a will or a condition imposed by reality, the home office has become mandatory for so many people, and you must accept this reality and enjoy the benefits of working from home. If you want to go further and become a true productivity ninja, I invite you to attend a special class on the Productivity Ninja course on time management by visiting arata.se/time management.